You're listening to the Content Sales Podcast, a show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 237. I'm Suzi Dafnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Suzi. I'm doing great. I'm actually on the tail end of a very big week of creation. So I'm like, I might be ready for a little bit of a break, but otherwise I'm very well and very looking forward to speaking with you today.
Well, thank you. And yes, I get that. I too have been on a long, I look at the time of year and I'm thinking, I don't know where it all went. I feel like I've been in the process of creation all year. But here we are creating a brand new episode of the Content Sales Podcast. And we have a very special guest here today to talk about a subject both Michelle and I have a lot of experience with, and that is hiring a copywriter. When should you do it? What is the best way to do it? What do you look for in a copywriter? What sort of projects should be done by a copywriter? So these are all questions that we've asked all the time, and getting good answers to these questions is so important because good copy can make a massive, 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 massive difference to your results.
Oh, it sure can. And it can be a big pain point for small business owners. They don't like writing copy, or we're not good at it, or we tried a copywriter, but we wasted a ton of money and time and then ended up writing it ourselves. I hear all the stories, and there is a lot to it. And we have a great expert who is going to give you the drum on all of this and a lot more.
Yes, and I love this guest. She's a longtime member of the Her Business Network. She's an amazing business owner. She's a copywriter. She's someone Michelle and I both adore. And let me tell you a little more about her, the amazing Belinda Weaver, before we bring her on. So she's the founder of Copywrite Matters. She's a copy coach. And so she works with aspiring and working copywriters, helping them supercharge their income, create more financial stability, and really avoid career burnout that can come with being self-employed. And she believes the whole point of being your own boss is to create a job that's better than the one that you left. And she's been in the business of writing for 10 years now. She has courses, she does coaching, she does mentoring, and she builds skills and confidence so that writers can ditch the hustle and burnout and really enjoy the journey of the writing work that they're doing. As I said, she's a longtime Her Business Network member. She's an Aussie. She's living in California with her pug Fenris, her two daughters, and her husband. And she says that she lists those three, the pug, the daughters, and the husband, in her bio in their order of neediness, which tells you a little bit about her sense of humor. Let's get Belinda on the line. Hey, Belinda, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Suzi and Michelle.
So excited to have you.
Absolutely. I know just how much value you bring, and looking forward to getting all the gems of wisdom from you today. And I want to dive right on into the first question. And this is just straight out of the gate, just to sort of establish terms and get everybody on the same page. Can you explain the role of a copywriter in a small business sort of context, what they might be using a copywriter for their content marketing?
Sure. Well, at the heart of it, a copywriter writes the words you use in your marketing. But I feel like that's a bit of an outdated description, because that really positions a copywriter as someone who's just a bit of a wordsmith, someone who's churning out the words. But really now, especially with AI writing tools that we all should be using in our business, because they are fantastic and can be very helpful, a copywriter's role really has shifted gears to being someone who is a strategic guide into a business's messaging and voice. And so a copywriter, yes, they can write the words, but they're really the person who can listen to a business owner, capture their brand voice so that they are showcasing their best self in their marketing. But it's also a process of assimilating a lot of different information and putting it together in a way that builds a connection, that is persuasive, motivates people to take action. And so it's less about the words and more about the strategy. So there's a lot of things a copywriter can do for a business owner to really help them show up in their marketing in a really authentic way that also persuades people to take action with them.
Yeah, I love the point you're making about, the writer being sort of a strategic ally to the business, not just an order taker who spits out 150 words. That's not going to cut it anymore in most cases.
Mm.
Can we dig into this a little bit more? Because I know myself, having, provided copywriting services, but also mostly hiring copywriters, like the word copywriter is almost like too big a label, isn't it? Like there are just so many different types of people who provide copy. So there's like the technical writer, the creative writer, the blog writer, the SEO writer, the conversion copywriter, like the person that's a specialist in like email sequences. Like, wow, there's just so many variations. And we're seeing more and more specialization in copywriters. I think it can be a bit overwhelming for a small business owner to know which type do I need and all of those types of things. So can you just talk a little bit about the different types of copywriters?
Yeah, well, there's the laundry list that you just gave, and like a lot of it's sort of like virtual assistants. You think they're just one group of people who can do a lot of things. But if you ask someone to do a lot of different jobs at once, you're going to get someone who's probably not very skilled across the board. So there is copywriters who niche by industry, like they look after health professionals, or they write for SaaS businesses, or they do e-commerce copywriting. There are also copywriters who niche by project. Some of the ones you said, Michelle, there is email copywriters, there are sales page copywriters. There are website copywriters and SEO copywriters. And then there is also copywriters who will niche by outcome, which will be your conversion copywriters or your UX copywriters. But there's also a lot of generalists, and I mentor copywriters and I speak to a lot of copywriters who get stuck because they're like, I need a niche, and I don't know what to do. And I always encourage copywriters to take a lot of projects on in the beginning to figure out what they like to do. And a lot of copywriters like doing lots of different things. And that was me, actually. I loved writing websites. I did SEO. I did emails. I loved doing video scripts and Facebook profiles. And I loved writing for lots of different industries. So when you're thinking about who you need for your job, if you need someone to do one job, like I need a new email sequence leading up to my launch, for example, then you might want to look for an email copywriter. But if you are looking for someone who you can maybe rely on more regularly for lots of different types of work, you can find those people as well. I think one of the most important thing that more and more copywriters are really getting skilled at is the brand voice element, and making sure that as copywriters, they have the skills to dip into every kind of voice and mimic it. That's becoming a really strong core skill.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited because I'm a big fan of, for all small business owners, that we should do what we are good at. And so bringing a copywriter into your business, either on a project or ongoingly as a small business owner, is something I know Michelle and I really condone. What is a sign that a small business owner might notice that says, oh, I really should be hiring a copywriter? Or how might they truly know that, oh, this would be a good time to bring in a copywriter?
I think there's a couple of signs. The first one might be one that a business owner might notice is when they're not getting the right people to their business. So the wrong kind of people are making inquiries. They're not getting strong, qualified leads. That could be a mismatch with messaging. And it could also mean marketing tools like the website aren't crafted in a way that is qualifying the right people and persuading them to take action. So when a business owner is saying, look, I'm just not getting the right kind of people to my business, it's time to look at your messaging and how you're showing up in your marketing from a copywriting point of view. The other one might be when you have something quite important to do. And it might be, we're going through a rebrand because we have, it's been 5 years, our business has evolved and changed, and we are now a different business. So we need someone to help us figure out how we sound and how we show up and how we represent ourselves in our marketing. So a rebrand can often be a good time to get some specialists involved to help you get more strategic. And then I think the third one is when you have a moneymaker on the line. For example, you need a sales page and you need that sales page to work. And you don't want to take a chance on, you just having a red hot go at it. And I think a lot of business owners are in absolutely the ideal position to write their own copy because they know their customers, they know their business, they know their voice, they're extremely passionate, and that comes through in the copy. But it can be a time when you're saying, I do my own social posts, I write my own emails, but you know what? I want this sales page to really hit the mark. So I'm going to get someone else involved in this.
I love that. I love that. And certainly when we rebranded, 7 years ago now, rewriting the copy was really important. When we changed ideal client was another time, speaking to what you just said. So when we stopped catering to this type of customer and we had to cater, we didn't have the words. All the words we had was for a different ideal client. Or if we only ever sold low-cost items and now we're offering a high-ticket service, the language and the messaging might be different. So many places. But I love that you've talked about it. It can be a general overall person that can dip into different things. Or like you said, I need this sales page to sell its pants off. So I need a sales page copywriter. I love it. How do we as small business owners determine how much we should be spending on a copywriter? I guess that's a bit of a difficult question, but I'm going to let you answer it anyway, because is there industry rates? Because I don't want people to get hung up on, well, I could just use AI and that's not going to cost me anything. So how should a small business owner think about what they're paying for their copywriting?
It's a good question because it's tricky, and it's a great question because when you go to a copywriter, you'll want to have an idea that you're going to have to spend some money. And the funny thing is when I'm talking to copywriters, I suggest that they put a budget form, like a budget field on their contact form with some ranges, because sometimes we don't know how much our budget is because we don't know how much it's going to cost. But when we see a number that is over our budget, we know when we see a number that's too big. So when you see a range of numbers, you can go, oh, okay, this kind of feels reasonable for me. And it can be in direct proportion to the outcomes that you're going to get. So, for example, a sales page will cost more than a blog post. And the word count, it would be a pretty short sales page, but the word count might be the same. But the point is the sales page is going to bring in some money. So there's a high value added not only to the time and effort that the copywriter has to put into it. And so I think when you're looking at, say, website copy, I'm going to use that as an example. I think a reasonable expectation is however much you're paying for the design, you're also going to have to pay in the copywriting.
Interesting.
Which is a really surprising thing for a lot of people because they only think of the website design, and then the website design says, well, where's the copy? And then they go to a copywriter and they're like, oh, do I have to spend another $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 on a copywriter? And it can feel a lot. So I think it's very reasonable to have that kind of however much I'm spending on design, I will have to spend on the words, because the words are what will sell people. And of course, nurturing content like blog posts and content, that's at a much lower price point where it could be anywhere between like $100 and $500, depending on the complexity. Because if you ask me to write you a blog post on bridal fashion for spring, that's very different to writing a longer, almost white paper on technology changes for SaaS organizations. But I think the expectation, when you think of a number, add a little bit more just so you don't get sticker shock. And then, as with everything, come back to how much you can actually afford in your business. Because I think that's when you've really got to make that decision from.
Because it's a business expense. It is, you pay for technology, you pay for different resources in your business. Copywriting is going to be another one of those resources. There is a human somewhere that's going to put hours of work into crafting your message, and that is something that you're going to want to exchange money for and get great value from. And so we want you to level up as you're listening. Even if you've never done this before, we're not suggesting you just, everyone needs a copywriter and everyone needs one now and you need to use one all the time. You want to be strategic about it. But just think about it when you're thinking about your team, especially for those of you who are solopreneurs or have micro teams. Who are the key players on your team? And a copywriter, I believe these days, is someone you do want to be tapping into at the right times for your business. Even if you're a great writer, which a lot of us are not, But here we are trying to sell things on our website, through our social posts, through our emails, through our webinars, through all the different things without having our messaging down. Where for someone else, they're going to get there faster, easier, and it might cost you something, but you want to grow your business. And so I see it as an investment. Thank you, Belinda.
And I've actually, when I've outsourced to copywriters, because I'm a copywriter, I actually get professionals to do my messaging because I'm too into it. I'm in the weeds of it. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, they're interviewing all these people, all these clients. They're doing the analysis of the messaging. They're doing the strategic thinking. They're putting these deliverables together. Then they're writing. This would have taken me weeks around the process of, oh, there's my dog, around the time of, trying to do the rest of my business tasks. So that's another way to think about it as well, is that investment of how long it would have actually taken you to do that work.
Love it.
Yeah, and that's really where I was kind of going with the next question around this idea of really what is affordability, because I know many small business owners do worry about the affordability of a professional copywriter. Well, I think we've actually got two camps. I think we've got those camps that have no idea, and there is the sticker shock moment when you see, oh, it's a few $1,000s for this, or really? And then we've got the others that kind of know it's going to be expensive and just therefore rule it out. And I want to just talk to you about, like, where is there a middle ground? Is there a way I can get started where I know I want somebody else to write the copy, right? I know they're going to do the analysis, they're going to free me up, and that my time's better spent elsewhere. But just getting over that initial hump of like parting with the cash, finding the cash, like, are there any sort of stepping stones I can take before I head into a full scale sort of professional arrangement? Or what advice do you have for those operating on a tight budget or that just need to wrap their head around it a bit more to get started?
Yeah, I think there's maybe if you don't know how much something is going to cost, allow for the sticker shock, where you might say, I'm going to send out some inquiries. I'm going to start to talk to some people because I want to get a couple of numbers in mind, and then come back to it later when you're ready. So you're like, I'm going to feel some feelings. I was a little surprised at how much that was. Okay, now I'm actually going to put that in my budget for Q3 because I know this is something that I want to have help with. And so I'm going to plan for that expense. So you can just maybe push it out a little bit more once you have an idea of the kind of numbers that you need to think about. But there's also, what we do in copywriting is we reduce the scope. If you don't have a lot of budget, we can do less. So that might be where you say, okay, I'm not going to actually ask them to do this whole entire thing. I'm actually going to pick some strategic pieces that I can do to get started, that can get the ball rolling, that we can maybe fill some gaps in, and then I'll come back and move it forward.
And sometimes if it's a big core piece of content, then you can pull it apart, for the smaller things. They don't need to originate that work, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I know one thing I've done where I've hired a copywriter, I've said, well, I haven't really got the budget for the whole shebang. So can you do the voice of customer interviews? Can you do the messaging strategy? They created a page outline for me, which was still a lot of heavy lifting. And then I took over. So reduce the scope. Ask yourself, which steps do you need a skilled professional to be part of? And which steps could you then take over until you have more budget?
Yeah, and I think you could even, with the right skilled professional, get their advice on the project, brief them on the whole project and say, look, and maybe they give you a price and you've got the sticker shock, and then it could be like, okay, look, that's not my budget. Just knowing what you know about the project and your skill set, how might I make the most use of you? Like, what might be the 2 or 3 things that you do? And like, obviously a sales page is a great thing to get a copywriter to write, because you can take all your emails from that sales page, or you can, 100%. Take all the headlines or the sub-headlines and turn them into social posts and all of those great things. They'll often write social proof for you and all that as well.
And also, just jumping in quickly, there are a lot of copywriters who are learning and growing and who aren't pricing in the premium price tag.
Right.
And good point. If you accept that you might have to do a little bit more input, then you can get a lower price copywriter.
And grow that person up with you, right? Like, I think that's a stepping stone strategy that's really worth considering, because once that person gets to know you, they get a few more projects under their belt, you've formed a great relationship. And I do think it's about relationships with copywriters. I think it does take a bit of time to get them up to speed. So, yeah, thank you for that. And the one thing I just wanted to mention, I think the hard thing we have as purchasers of copywriting is we can all write words. We can't all draw pictures or design a page. It's very clear we're not a designer, but we think we're a writer, and really understanding what that's costing you if you're writing bad stuff that's not converting, and really thinking about that ROI, I think helps reduce the sticker shock as well.
Where do we start looking? So I want to hire a copywriter. Are there specific platforms you recommend or networks you recommend we tap into, so that we're not just going to a freelancer website and going, I'm your copywriter?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my go-to is I like to ask people in my network, people who I admire their marketing. Oh, I love your website. That's what I do with the design. I love your website. Who did that? I think that's the way I go to begin with, because you can go onto Google and search copywriter, and you will get copywriters who are more likely to be closer to the top of their game because they're really focusing on their marketing and their SEO. But then you still have to go, I'm looking through their services, I'm looking through their proof, I'm looking through their process. Are they the right person for me? Do I think I'm going to like them? Oh, is their pricing within my budget? Whereas when you do get that shortcut recommendation, it shortcuts the whole process of decision-making, because the decision-making can be really fatiguing as well. But at the same time, not just people but networks you're in, push it a little bit further, because you don't necessarily need to find the best person. You need to find the best person for you. And that's the best person in your price range and who's available, who you're going to vibe with, who has the experience levels. So I think that's a great first port of call, is asking people who you know and in the spaces you're in.
I love that. And we already kind of covered this a little bit in exactly what you said and what you said earlier about selecting the right copywriter. Is there anything else as far as tips for actually zoning in on, this is the right copywriter? Is there anything you would have them do, like a test project, or ask for references, or look at other work? Or how would we sort of narrow it down if there were a number of people that could be possibles?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first thing is you have to be really clear on what you want someone to do, and they need to have that as a service. So can they solve the problem that I have? Can they write the sales page or the emails or the website copy? If I have a specific niche, like an industry, do they familiar with it? So there's these little checkbox of things. Can they solve my problem? Looking for testimonials. We all love the proof. Have they solved it for other people? And new copywriters won't have as many, but I look for things like results, but copywriters can't really guarantee results. I recommend you look at more of the experience of the process. Michelle was so easy to work with. She really led the project. She really understood me. The brand voice was spot on. It sounded exactly like me. Those are the kind of things that refer to the experience and the copy, what you love about what they might love about the copy, that I think you can really work with. And also looking at, I think, copywriters that publish their process, so you know how it works. These are all things that you can look for to go check, 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 check. Okay, this person knows what they're doing. They might not have 10 years experience or 5 years experience, but they have a clear process. It's not a random generator. I like the way their copy sounds, because that will also give you an indication. We often choose people like, that's kind of like my brand voice. I like the way they sound. Yeah. And so yes, you can ask them to do test projects, and that's a nice way to go. Can we start with this small thing just to see if we vibe? But an important thing to know is you often pay for all the project admin and work on a small project that is also done on a big project. So small projects can almost be disproportionately expensive than bigger projects. But it's totally okay to go, how can we get started so we can figure this out together?
Yeah. We just had this experience. We were down to 3 possible copywriters, and the only way that I felt like I could make a decision was to have them do a test project. And it was very expensive, as a one-off kind of thing. But we asked them to not only do the project, and we gave them a scenario where the content would be published, who the audience was, etc. But we also asked them, as well as providing the content, to tell us the process that they went through to come up with this final product. And it was in that differentiation, in the way the voice came back. One of them was like, yeah, she got right. The other one was just not exactly right. When I listen to their process, I think, oh, okay, that's the way that they would process other projects. And that made the decision just so much easier. So while it costs us a bit at the gate to have 3 people do a mini project, they all did the same project, but I feel like it allowed me to make a better decision.
Yeah, I love that tip, because I've heard that also for people like virtual assistants. Have a slush fund ready where you're prepared to spend a little to find the right person. And I think it's just having that mental allocation of money that you might not get an immediate ROI on can help be the difference.
Thank you.
So, Belinda, we've decided we will pay for a copywriter. We've found a copywriter. We've got a project. Like, I know this could be its own episode, and I'm just asking really for your top line thoughts, but how can a business owner that's listening right now prepare to work with a copywriter to ensure the best possible outcomes? What does that collaboration process look like? Is there, key materials you should be putting together? How are you setting expectations? What might the workflow look like? Do you have any tips on platforms or tools to use? What are your top ideas in this space?
I think the main thing to understand, and you said the word, it's a collaboration. It's a real problem for everyone involved if you think the copywriter can just make it up. Copywriters need a lot of input from a business owner to understand what their business does, who they serve, what makes them choosable in the marketplace, the barriers to entry. So there are a lot of questions that a copywriter will ask, and you have to be prepared to answer those questions. And that in itself can take some time. So the copywriters I train in my group, I say send the brief to the client so they can at least have a think about the kind of questions. And then you get on a call and you talk through it. So the start of the project is really about having all your marketing understood, and clients who are further along in their marketing will be able to yes, I know all the answers to these questions because I'm really clear on it. Businesses who are a bit earlier in that journey find that a little bit harder. And from a process point of view, a good copywriter will be able to say, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to get this information, then I'm going to go away and do this work. You don't have to do anything. So a lot happens at the beginning. I'm going to come back with this strategy. I'm going to come back with the messaging. I'm going to come back with the first version. Then this is the next bit of work from a client, a business owner, is the revisions. And that is also something that takes some time. I know when I've had copy written by someone else, I need to read it through 3 times before I can really get a sense of what I want to give feedback on. And so when I've worked with someone, I've said, can you tell me when that is coming through? Because I need time in my calendar.
Right.
To get excited, to love it, to figure out what's not landing. It does all take some time. And I think that's a key tip, is to make time in your calendar to prep, to talk, and then give the revisions, because it's a collaboration.
So good. Now, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you coach copywriters on how to grow their businesses. So how can any aspiring copywriters listening get in touch with you? Part A. And part B is, how can we tap into your wonderful network of copywriters if we're looking for a copywriter?
Well, I'll answer number 2 first, because I love passing on great clients to the copywriters in my group, because I know them and I know they're fantastic, and I know they're growing their business and they have so much to offer. So I actually have a form that I can get people to fill out that basically says, what do you need doing? Tell me a little about this project. Do you have a budget and a date in mind? And I pass that on. And what I actually do is I curate the list of people who are coming back. So rather than you then getting 25 people that you then have to figure out who's the best person, right. I'm like, here is the list of people who I think are really good candidates. So that's the second one. If you're looking for a copywriter and you're like, I don't even know anyone who's hired a copywriter, I'm happy to pass that information on, and you can start some conversations with some good copywriters of all different experience levels as well.
Thank you. Our members are going to love this. Great.
And for copywriters listening, my coaching membership is called Confident Copywriting. I have a writing program for new and aspiring copywriters called the Copywriting Incubator. And so my role is to help people, once they know that copywriting is their thing, to help them learn the craft of copywriting and to also build a business that fuels their life rather than burning them out, because we can get stuck creating a job that is worse than the one we left. And that's not, life's too short for that. So, if you head to my website, copywritematters.com, there's free content, ways we can work together, lots of good stuff.
And we'll put links to all that as well. But copywritematters.com is the website. And as I said, we'll link you to all the places you can find Belinda and access her wonderful network in the show notes, which we'll give you the details for in just a minute.
And before we go, I do know, Belinda, very generously, you've got a free gift for our listeners. We're going to share that link in today's show notes. But do you want to just tell us a little bit about what this wonderful thing is you're sharing?
Yes, it's my 3 tips copywriting essentials mini course. And I put this together because once you start looking at copywriting, it can be a lot. There's a lot to think about at once. And I picked my top 3 tips. So if you want to dip your toe in the craft of copywriting, or you're a business owner as well who's like, I would like to just write with more intention. I would like to understand kind of how it's more than just nice words. It's just 3 tips, super short videos to help you start to think like a copywriter.
Love it.
So good. Thank you so much. I know our members and listeners are going to love that. My final question is there anything else you would like to leave us with?
I guess it's just that copywriting is everything.
That's all. Just a little thing to leave us with.
That's it. I mean, I'm biased because it's what I absolutely love to do. But, when you can write something or have something as part of your marketing that sparks a real connection. Like I've had people come to me and say, that page was for me. You wrote that about me and for me. It was me. That is a very special moment, and that's the power of the words in marketing.
Thank you so much. We adore you so much, value you and the contribution that you make to our Her Business community. And thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been awesome.
Thanks for thinking of me. It was so nice to see you both.
Michelle.
Suzi. That was great, wasn't it?
I love Belinda. She knows I love her. And I just love that she's such a great educator. And so I just want to sort of say that, like, we just interviewed someone who's a business owner who coaches copywriters, but how succinct, how to the point, does she know her topic and her messaging so that when she shows up in a show like this, doesn't have to do any prep. Like she's ready to go. So that was just sort of a little side been whirring through my mind as Belinda's been talking. But also I've just made a bunch of notes.
Oh, I made a bunch of notes. And just on that point that you've made, the other thing, just as we go meta for a bit about the way Belinda showed up, she also understood her audience. She understood who the listeners of the Content Sales podcast are. So she wasn't talking about corporates, or she wasn't talking about, ideas and budgets and projects that were not relevant to our audience. And that's a real skill set, I think, that comes with writing a lot of copy all the time and being a good marketer. You just naturally zone in on who the audience is. So she did a great job from that perspective as well.
Really, really good. I'd love to share a couple of the things that I wrote down. The first of which is about this idea of a copywriter isn't someone who puts words on a page. AI can put words on a page for you and very, very quickly. It's someone, she said, who can be a strategic guide into your messaging and your brand voice and allows you to showcase your best self. And I think that is such a great reframe for our listeners on what a copywriter can actually be, the role that they can actually have in your business.
Yeah, I wrote that one down too. You know, this big shift in the copywriter role, especially with the rise of AI. And I like that she was open to using AI tools strategically, but, you know, realizing that a strategic copywriter, somebody who's going to come in and not just write a bunch, you know, write 5,000 words, but is actually going to understand your audience, your brand voice, be a strategic partner. I couldn't have agreed with that more. I also really liked what she said about listening being one of the most important traits of your copywriter. And I think, as you know, the big hope we have for you as you're listening, if you're someone who's potentially going to hire a copywriter, is to just make that process a bit easier for you, to help you choose the right people. And I know myself, when I've hired copywriters, and Suzi, I know you've hired many, many copywriters, the one who listens is usually the one I give the job to.
Interesting. Yeah, so good. You know, that means they've come with no agenda. They're really there, you know, to serve the client.
Yeah, because, you know, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. If they've got their way they do things, and they're just spitting out the same thing. But the person that really wants to hear and really wants to know, they're going to write, in general, really good copy for you.
My next thing I wrote down isn't actually to do with copywriting. It's a little tip for those of us who people contact us through our contact form, and we have a service where we might have a range of prices and people might fall out of the funnel to buy from us because, you know, when we finally speak to them, they don't have the budget. I love what she said about including in your contact us form a little range of prices. What is your budget? And then having a range of prices. That way, you know, you or your customer service person or your assistant can look at those and go, okay, well, we can't help this person, or we're going to funnel this person towards our online self-paced version of our service as opposed to our one-on-one done for you service. Loved it, loved it, loved it.
I thought it was great too for the person, the copywriter. It's a great tip for you, or any sort of service provider, as you said. And I think it can help you fast track those people that tick the highest budget as well, you know. And I think for us, as we might be looking for a copywriter, you know, if you can find any price ranges, that's also super helpful. I liked also the advice she gave, and I think this is something our listeners, it's a conundrum they deal with often. Like, do I hire like the all-rounder copywriter, or do I hire the specialist copywriter? And I liked what she had to say about that, you know, there are moments when you want to choose the specialist gun conversion copywriter for your sales page, or, you know, the person that's going to come in and do some really high level. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yeah, that's weird. Sorry about that. But look, I think just this difference between when to choose the all-rounder and when to choose the specialist, I thought it was great advice. And I think using the specialist, those higher budget people, they're often higher budget, for those, you know, high stakes situations is great. And then having that copywriter that can write your about page and write a quick email for you, dash out that blog post, is also a great resource to have in your sort of team.
I love that, because, you know, yeah, sure, we'd love a copywriter to write everything that needs to be written. And in small business, you know, there's so many things, but we have a limited budget usually. So what is it that a pro can do? Like Belinda said, maybe it's that sales page for that new offer. Maybe it's that website page that's getting the most traffic that you want people to opt into, et cetera, et cetera. So really knowing what the scope is, and then finding the right people for the right task. So much goodness. This is one of those episodes I know that we're going to be referring a lot of people to over a long time. And I encourage you, if you listen, rewind and have another listen. If you're thinking, you know what, I'm really getting stuck, I'm not creating the content I want to create. The thing is, copywriters, they can write podcasts, they can write blog posts, they can write webinars, they can write video scripts, right? Some of the other examples that Belinda gave us, they can write social posts, they can write anything. They can interview your clients. She even mentioned having a copywriter do that for her and write case studies. So there's so many areas that you could be using a copywriter for. So thank you, Belinda, for being our guest today. We mentioned the bonus from Belinda, the free copywriting course gift. And I want to give you access to that in just a moment, as well as giving you details of where you can find all the different information that Belinda has available about herself. I'm not sure if she still does it, but she had a fabulous newsletter. If you can get onto her newsletter list, do that, because I learn so much every time I read her newsletter. Now, before I give you the details, we love sharing interviews like this one with Belinda with as many women as possible. If you enjoyed this episode, would you let us know? Now, you can leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Apple is the big mama, right, when it comes to reviews. We've already got over 100 5-star reviews, but we'd love many more. And you could even leave an actual written review or leave a rating. It doesn't matter. We would just love to know that you listened to and enjoyed this episode. The other thing is we actually have a Facebook page for the Content Sales Podcast. And if you want to leave a rating or review there, you could do that as well. I want to give a shout out quickly to Michelle Martin, who's a professional performance coach. She helps entrepreneurs own their businesses instead of their businesses owning them. And she does it by teaching them how to lead themselves, their teams, and their money. And she left a message, I think it was on LinkedIn, and she said, Suzi, it looks like you have an amazing community. I'm just getting into your podcast now, and I loved the episode that 10x is better than 2x. Really makes you shift your thinking. Hope to connect with you here, she said. So, Michelle, thank you so much. Now, like Michelle, you will get a shout out if you leave us a review. And we just want honest reviews. So we really want to know if you enjoyed this episode. So anything we mentioned here on the show, especially Belinda's free copywriting course, can be found in today's show notes, which is over on our website. And you'll find the show notes over at herbusiness.com/hire a copywriter, all one word, herbusiness.com/hire a copywriter. Michelle, what do we have coming up in the next episode?
Oh, this is really kind of a companion episode to this one. You know, we've been thinking about the various people in your world who might be able to help you do better content marketing. And of course, one of those people is a copywriter, Belinda Weaver being one of the best, and the people in her world that she trains and coaches as well being a great resource. The other person that can help you do better content marketing that may be in your world is a virtual assistant, somebody you may hire who may not be in your physical office, but might exist in another city, in your same city, in another country, who comes in and joins your team to specifically help you do content marketing.
I'm very excited about that as well, because I love seeing women get leverage for the things in their business that they shouldn't be focused on so that they can grow their business by 2, 5, 10 times. And both episodes, the one that we just did with Belinda, the one that's coming up, have this focus on the people to have around you for your marketing. And people is one of her business growth zones, 8 areas of business inside 8 areas inside our business that as business owners we want to be strong in, and people is one of those. And that's our focus for this month. And so we are equipping our members with resources like these podcasts, different downloads, things to watch, listen to, do, read, all around this area of strengthening the people part of their business. So we love giving our members that sort of support. So if you would like that sort of support ongoingly across all sorts of areas in your business, then you can check out the details at herbusinessnetwork.com. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go today?
I just was sitting here really reiterating the value of a copywriter. You know, it's not that it took them, 10 minutes. A good copywriter invests time and they will give you a return on your investment. And if you're curious, if you're copywriter curious, I definitely suggest getting onto Belinda and seeing who's in her world that can possibly help you with your next project.
Thank you so much. Thanks again to Belinda Weaver of Copywrite Matters. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sales Podcast. Bye for now.